You know, my dad always said our society had it backwards. You know, the college professors get the big bucks and the preschool teachers, you know, scrape by. I think Betty just deserves, you know, $1 million a year for what she does.
I am Betty, and I've been teaching preschool for 51 years.
When she started her preschool, there was no such thing. It was a class. It wasn't a place to drop your kids off. And this was absolutely unheard of in the country, let alone in Walla Walla.
She's probably the best preschool teacher in the entire world.
Many people know I work at a preschool, but they might not know where I work. And so then I'll tell them, you know, I'm a teacher at Betty's. And they'll go, oh, we can always tell when a child comes from Betty's preschool.
My favorite thing at this school is Betty.
When she first started, there weren't any other preschools at that time, and I think she was really a forerunner in probably getting that movement started, at least in our town.
Oh, I just love Betty's preschool. I have so many good memories here, and I learned so many things here.
Well, I like everything about Betty's preschool, but primarily Betty. She is so warm and
she is a pillar of this community.
In this town, if you say, I go to Betty's, enough said, everybody knows.
It's the foundation. It's the first step in a journey of 1,000 steps, and she gets all those children off on the right step. It's just amazing, and she does that just through compassion and consistency, and you know, just even in how you wash your hands and how you use the bathroom and how you check in the morning. It's amazing, and it's consistency, and it's a discipline, and you know, in many ways, it's a lot of people would argue it's what our society lacks. And
I wanted to be a teacher ever since I was in kindergarten. I just think that people have in them a lot of times what they are going to be, and I think teaching chose me. The way that I help a child gain confidence is to enable them to have many successes.
A sense of confidence at that age that you can do anything, that anything is possible for you. And to have somebody who is not only teaching you that, the basics, but also to believe in yourself, I think is just invaluable. It's incredible.
my children, particularly Owen, the last one, never had any interest in holding a pencil until he came here, and he's writing his name and all. So she can make learners out of just about anyone.
I learned how to wash my hands properly. We did a whole unit on how to wash our hands. I learned how to make butter. I learned the alphabet song and all my senses.
What's different about your child from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year? The big word I would say right there is confidence.
But I love it when the children get to paint because it's their free expression. Betty does teach them how to use the paintbrush in the correct way to use the paints, and so they're learning that as well as being able to express themselves freely, and it's a lot of fun.
She just doesn't miss one thing about every child and their specific needs, and she just knows what works. She's really good at what she does.
Really, self-confidence is probably the biggest thing. They're self-confident in the fact that they can write their name, that they can come into a new situation and make a friend. They feel good about themselves and know how to be a good citizen and a good friend to other children.
But I came down the stairs, and it was the first day, and he was wearing a green and blue striped polo, and he was in the back corner, and he was all there by himself, and I walked over there, and I asked him if I could play with him. And yeah, we just, ever since then, I mean, every day we hang out and stay connected, so that's great. And Betty came over and said, "Are you guys friends?" And we looked at each other and said, "I guess so." And so I remember it vividly, which is pretty cool.
the overall theme, as my son has eloquently said, is to inspire and give confidence. And at that age, 4s and 5s aren't really the the risk takers that you hope they will be, and by the time they leave here, they think they can.
Confidence isn't something you can give somebody. It has to come from within, so you have to have successes to gain that confidence. So we're just trying to present the successes so that they can stack those up in their brain and say, hey, I can do this.
I think that I liked how like homey it was, and like you felt like you were safe and that someone was always there for you.
Whereas he became a leader instead of a follower. And that's what we would like for all the kids.
I just want to thank Betty for everything that she did, and I don't think I'd be the person that I am today if it weren't for her.
If you go into a kindergarten room and ask the kids, how many kids want to run a marathon with me this afternoon? Everybody's like, yeah, me, yeah. By the time they're in the 5th grade, they've been told you can't, you won't, so many times that they begin to believe it. Betty never does that. She just constantly encourages. Do touch, do explore, do broaden your horizons. And just, and out of that comes amazement. And kids are curious, kids want to go on and find out about new things, and it's just, she has instilled that in them.
I couldn't figure out how to make stars, and so Betty would draw just a couple points on the paper, and she'd ask me to just connect the dots. And just like that, I made a star, so I was like, cool, and I couldn't stop after that, so it was pretty fun.
Everything I've done in life is built off preschool, literally like blocks. So I think that's what makes her so special to me.
Kids just, man, they come out of here just knowing they can conquer the world.
The way that I teach the class manners, certainly some of them come to me knowing manners, but the way that we remind them and enhance those manners is to have a unit of study and pictures, and they recite them, and then we constantly refer to them. Was that the way we were supposed to do this? Or thank you for remembering your manners, that kind of thing.
She is nice, and she helps kids, and she helps us make our drawings.
Even as these tiny 4- and 5-year-old people, Betty was already making a difference in their behavior because they wanted to behave well for her, and I think that's true of a lot of the kids who've come through here. Betty taught them to be nice. Betty expected them to be nice, and they started out wanting to be nice because they wanted Betty's approval, and they've grown up to be really nice kids because they knew they could be. They knew somebody cared that they were nice, and that's a pretty remarkable thing to do in the world.
You learn your first lessons here, like your moral lessons and the basics of learning, I guess. I learned how to write my name here. I learned how to make a crown out of paper. Yeah.
I used to teach kindergarten, and so then would have quite a few children that she had in her class. And as a kindergarten teacher, I really did notice a difference. And part of that was because I knew the things that they had learned. And they knew how to push in their chair, and they knew how to put away their toys, and they knew how to be a responsible member of a class.
And I think that she's still teaching things that not only never go out of style, but that we need so much today. Things like civility and learning good manners, and things that too often get pushed aside in the race to hurry academics along. And I think Betty takes the time to actually create and help make good citizens, and that's something that is so vitally important today that I don't think we get to see in a lot of education anymore.
Push in your chair, wash your hands, wipe your feet, be nice to others, and sharing, that was a huge thing at Betty's, sharing. And now it's different because I decided that I wanted to become a teacher, so now I look at her as a huge influence and try to remember little things that she did or didn't do, and because obviously she's very successful.
You were way ahead of your time because now you see people with hand wash everywhere and all this stuff. If we only had hand wash back then, But there's just so many basic skills and manners that you were taught here.
I think one thing that stood out to me was just the way that the kids respect her. You know, they just respect her so much, and anything that Betty says goes. And Betty never has to raise her voice, and that's something very original, I think.
Those are the things that Betty in her special way could do. And obviously, she would not be doing this today at her ripe young age and how many years she's done unless she loves it. And that's why you know that she puts 110% of love into this, not just, this is a job, I'm trying to make some money, and you just don't see that anymore.
Like when I went to kindergarten, like you have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom and stuff. She taught me that, and yeah, how to share.
I like that it's really a happy place when the children walk in to Betty's. You can always expect to be greeted by Betty. They work, they work on teaching the children to greet the teachers before the teachers greet them. But if there's a little pause in there, the teachers swoop in and greet the children.
Betty has influenced my life a lot. I'm a much better listener, I'm sure. And, I'm just kind-hearted now, and she's made me a much better person.
When we first came, the sign outside the front door, my husband and I looked at each other and said, it says we've got to wipe our feet 4 times. So we wiped our feet 4 times. Then you come in the door and you have to hold the railing. So you hold the railing, and even Lori holds the railing when she comes down.
They're away from their parents often for the first time. So, I want them to know that the manners their parents teach them are going to hold at preschool as well.
She, from an early age, she helped me build a structure of work and how I view others, and it's really helped me to improve today along the lines of studying and treating others fairly.
I think Betty taught my children a lot about being with other children and how to behave with other children.
I always remember that when we would go out to recess, I would always be one of the biggest kids, and so I would always be the one that pushed the merry-go-round for all the other kids on it. I guess it had to do with Betty teaching me to be kind. I would be kind to them by pushing instead of wanting to be on it. So.
You always hope that you meet a person who raises your game, makes you want to do better.
She taught me a lot about not just like learning, but like how to be compassionate and patient towards others, and I think she was a really good influence on me when I was younger.
Every person has something to offer. Everybody comes with something unique and something special.
I really think that Betty recognizes that you can be very intelligent and academically inclined, but that there are things that are just as important as that, like civility, like having good manners, like being a good citizen.
She always taught us to be nice to each other, and that's always a good thing. And she taught me to sometimes slow down and stuff, which I have problems with.
We cover our cough so that you don't cough in someone's face, that you wash hands, you say please and thank you. You learn how to work cooperatively. Those are things that are invaluable lessons.
Betty was always very calm about everything. If kids were in an argument, she would just handle it very calmly and be nice, and she just taught me how to handle things, and that you don't have to overreact about everything. That if you're calm and you just tell people how you're feeling, then your problems will be solved.
They just grow by leaps and bounds socially, playing with others, making friends.
Well, we talk about if you bump someone, you say, I'm sorry, or are you okay? Can I help you? If you, we don't push, we don't do all those things that you're not supposed to do, and that we try to be helpful to people and to be kind to people and to be friendly to people. We say thank you and please and you're welcome.
The only thing that she really cared about was what would Betty think of her. Didn't matter that I was mad at her, but she thought maybe Betty's not going to like this, and I'll go to school and Betty will find out what I've done and Betty will be sad.
she's really taught me how to like be respectful and be nice and like all the rules that I know I should follow. Just like basic stuff that you should know on a daily basis, and she helped out a lot.
There was a child who would say to Betty, "Teacher, teacher," and she turned to the child and she said, "My name's not teacher, it's Betty. Do you like to be called student?" From then on, he did not call her teacher anymore. She was Betty.
She taught me a lot about labeling things, how to label everything so that you know where it is, and a lot of organizational skills. And I still use that a lot today. And she taught me how to play well with other people, which is important in everyday life.
One person changing a community like that, it only takes one special individual with a design on what they think the world could be and engaging in possibility. And I think over the last nearly half a century of influencing people with civility, it makes a difference. It makes a difference, and that's what she's done.
In the last 51 years of preschool, I have had about 3,000 children.
She taught us how to sew and make Native American headbands.
And now what were you doing?
We were making a stocking.
And she taught you to sew a different way, right?
Yeah. Because when we were doing the Native American headbands, we had to sew like up and down, then up and then down, and this one we have to sew just down. And we take it from the bottom, pull it up, and go back down.
Betty and her other teachers have influenced generations of kids in Walla Walla, and how Walla Walla is a great place to raise kids, and she's one of the key factors to that.
I think over and over again that she has influenced so many children and so many parents and families and helped them along their way as well.
When you go down shopping with Betty or around town, and here comes a little child up to her and give her a big hug and kiss, and it's just so impressive. And another example of that was like yesterday. We were sitting in the TV room and the doorbell rang. I went to the doorbell. Here's this little red-haired boy, probably 4 years old. Is Betty home? Coming over with a card and a cookie. You know, giving her that and giving her a big hug, wishing her a Happy New Year. What a thrill.
She's special in a lot of ways, but I love that when you see her on the street, even years and years later, she still remembers your name and will just give you a big hug, and it's like you never left.
In my work profession, I take care of moms and babies. So when I'm looking after a newborn baby at the hospital and thinking about what lies out there ahead for them, and I think about here in Walla Walla that there's a very good chance that they'll go to Betty's preschool, and then I just know that they're going to go on and do great things because they'll have had Betty as part of their life.
You know, after you go to school here, Betty's just part of your family. You know, you got to remember, my brother went here, my older brother, I went here, my younger sister went here, and by the time you get 3 kids through here, she's just part of family.
My favorite thing about my job is the children, and just they bring me lots of love, and I have a lot of love to give to them.
You know, some of the people that were in that first class with me are still friends of mine today. We went all through school together, through Betty's preschool, through grade school, junior high, and high school, and we're still friends today.
It's fun for me as a teacher when students that I have in my class have had her, and we share some special bond because of that. I have a student in my class right now who almost every day asks, "How's Betty doing?" because she loves her and she misses her, even how many years later. she wants to know, still have that connection, and I find that quite often with children.
How involved she is in our community, and the schools, everyone. She's involved in everyone's life, and she's very important to everyone.
That she remembers the name of all of the kids and the families who've come through here. They go out in the world as people who knew that there was someone who truly loved them and cared about their education and cared about their family. Betty's not just a preschool teacher, she is like one of those great family matriarchs, and Walla Walla is her family and has been for over 50 years. And she has touched so many, many, many lives. She's influenced a lot of teachers here in town and how they teach. And I know that the kindergarten, first and second grade teachers who've had kids who've come through Betty's, they appreciate the consistency. You know, invite the parents in, invite the grandparents in, visiting aunts and uncles from out of town. You know, come in and spend time with your kids. So she really made this a family place. But she made you toe the line, too. I appreciated that. I was here one day when a dad who was dadding by himself because his wife was on a business trip brought his daughter in her pajamas because he was just crazy busy and thought it was okay. And he was about 7'2", and tiny Betty looks up at him and she said, "That's unacceptable. You got to bring her dressed. You got to bring her on time." And he took it like one of the 4 and 5-year-olds, like, wow, Betty's not happy with my behavior, and I want to do better. And so he was a better dad, and he cared about being a better dad because, like the 4-year-olds, you wanted Betty's respect and approval because she's that nice of a person.
I think she just was always so supportive. I mean, I'll run into her in the grocery store and she'll say, "Hi, how are you doing? And how's college? Or how's life?" And she still remembers my name and where I'm going to school. It's just knowing that there's someone who still cares about you 15 years later is pretty amazing.
My mom is just very, very special. A lot of people will say that, but my mom's kind of proven it, not only for her 3 children, but for, like I said before, thousands of other 4-year-old children that came through her school, that they could be, whether they're 6 years old or 25 years old today, they remember Betty.
If you go to any classroom in the school district, there's probably some Betty's children in that have gone through this. If you go to any organization that employs more than maybe 40 people, there's probably somebody there that has gone through Betty's preschool. That's pretty amazing when you think about kids don't go to the same high school, they don't go to the same middle schools, but they all meet here as they get started in their education.
It's amazing to me that she's been doing this for 50 years, and people go, "Well, what did your mom used to do?" Same thing she's doing now. She has 54-year-olds that visit her a couple times a week, and she teaches them valuable things.
The first time I met Betty was before we had kids because my husband was a good friend with her son and family. And I remember thinking, when we have kids, they have to go to Betty's preschool because that's what cool people do and what good parents do.
And so I like that you can count on everything to be consistent. I love that Betty has not lost the energy or interest after all these years to teach the same way with the same enthusiasm and the same love.
I just think it's amazing that Betty has come down the steps from upstairs for 50 years. I know she hasn't been in this exact place for that long, but she's been in this location for a number of years since her children were small. And to think of a lady who really started a preschool and wound up being a single parent mother, and to have 3 children that she was caring for as well as having her school. It was a pretty amazing feat for a woman at that time. And then to think about at that time that she didn't have an assistant, and that she did that really with staying up late as well as raising a family was amazing. And to see that she still has a desire and the love to teach and be in the classroom. I know that's why she's still here.
I think she's reminded me that you can go the distance and do it with utter style and graciousness and compassion. And she's just like, for me, because I also am a teacher, she's just a constant reminder when I come to those visitations. She's just given her heart and soul. And sometimes when I'm sitting there in the audience, I hope and I pray that I have the same kind of influences on children that she's had. It would be an honor for me to know that, because I just think she's given of herself her entire life, and she's just a gracious, gracious, incredible lady.
And I told her, well, I hope you're not planning to retire until daughter number 3 goes through your preschool, and she promised that she wouldn't. And at that point in time, I didn't know that daughter number 3 would now be a 7th grader, and Betty still looks incredibly young and beautiful, and she's still here teaching preschool.
I don't know when Betty's going to retire. I don't know that she ever will. I think Betty will always be Betty. She'll always be down here.
It's warm and fuzzy to see people every place I go. Now and then I panic because I know I should know who that is, but I can't think whose mother is that. But I think what I get from that, I do feel, now I'll cry, respected. And that's a good feeling.
I think if you talk to both parents and former students, you'll find that they really got a head start by going to the school. I couldn't really document that, but I know that going to kindergarten prepared versus the kids that weren't in a preschool situation, you were just better prepared for going all the way through school and for life. And again, I know that she's had students from all across the years come back to her as adults and go, I learned stuff, I still remember, and it's benefited all of us.
We have one more that'll be attending Betty's preschool. Hopefully we have one more on the way, so we keep her supplied with a steady stream of students.
I don't consider myself famous. I mean, I just do what I do, and every year I do it, and the years have rolled by, and of course I've met a lot of people along the way, and it is nice to have people smile when they see you.
She's always willing to help others. She wants to help every student that walks in her door. She wants to help every family that walks in her door to be what they can be and to help them to fulfill their potential. And I think that is really seen when older children, children that see her, that have had her, even if they're 5 years old or 10 years old or 20 years old or even older than that, are always excited to see her. And quite often, instead of just saying, oh, hi, Betty, it'll be, Betty!
My favorite memories of Betty's preschool probably are coming down here when all the kids are very active and Betty and her assistant are working with them, and it's just like a bunch of elves in Santa's workshop.
When the teenagers, and especially the teenage boys, are still, will still come up to me and give me a big hug, it's just really rewarding. It's wonderful.
How has Betty influenced your life?
I would say same as the rest of my family. That's such a big question when somebody, I'm going to get emotional, when someone is able to slowly infuse themselves, that you can't extract their influence. That's a beautiful thing. And so Betty becomes part of a fabric, I think, of everybody who she touches, where you can't say it's one thing that she taught me how to color or she taught me how to read, but that she just becomes part of something you can't extricate and you can't specify. It's just a fabric that weaves itself in.
My favorite memory is when I finally took the beanbag off my head. One of the things I remember most about Betty's was that's when I first learned how to handle myself in front of an audience, in front of the public. And because that is not something I am comfortable with at all. And we had to do you have to walk around this area we're in right now with a beanbag on your head, and we were singing a song, and I don't remember the song. I'm sure everyone else was singing it. But I remember that specifically was probably one of the toughest times for me, but also one of the most rewarding. We finished the whole march before I could remove it, and I just remembering. In retrospect, I think it was the size of a beanbag chair that was on my head. But when we look at it again, because we have that along with the Pilgrims, it's it's a little hard. So.
Betty teaches us a lot of stuff.
Like what? What does she teach you?
Like, we don't have any snack, even.
When people say, oh, so Betty's your mom? And I'll say, yeah, she is. Makes me stand up a little straighter.
One day, after close to the end of the year, Betty asked if I would be interested in teaching here. And quite honestly, I've told her this before, I felt like I was nominated for the Academy Awards.
What has she taught you?
Thinking.
I wanted to be the best teacher ever. That was always my big goal.
I made a joke a couple of years ago that she wasn't going to retire until the first grandchild of a student had come through the school. And it's happening? Okay.
This year.
This year. Okay, does that mean you're retiring soon?